a pleasure to welcome you all to Tea and Tenacity, a conversation on capital, policy, and enterprise and the role that women are playing as we shape Guyana's economy. This episode of Tea and Tenacity is our inaugural episode, one that we plan to build out in the few months coming. So we would encourage you all to join and to lock in as to the conversation that we will be presenting on Tea and Tenacity. We have decided to launch this podcast at our micro women learning enterprise at the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry. This is an enterprise that was set up to focus and support women in agro-processing and also men who have an interest in agro-processing. So it's a conversation that we hope that will be encouraging and support the growth of women in Guyana. Guyana is experiencing one of its most transformative period in its history. Entire sectors are expanding, new opportunities are emerging, and the private sector is being called upon to grow faster, innovate more, and compete globally. But growth must also be inclusive. And when I talk about inclusivity, I will just pause to let our viewers know the women who are in the room before I introduce our panelists. So in our audience, we have quite a few women who are trailblazers. I would not be able to call the names of all of them, but of course I would like to highlight my sister presidents, if I may, of the chambers. I have Josephine Tapp, who is the president of the Women's Chamber, young, but she has been blazing. Also, we have Alistair Bishop, who is the president of the European Chamber. We have Samantha Reed, who is the president of the Berbice Chamber. And supporting them is Onisia Johnson, who is head of SBM Suriname. And of course, we have the lovely Priya Mahadio, who heads up all the corporate conversation and finance at GBTI Bank. We also have Katina Benjamin, who represent the shipping sector, and we're happy to have her here. And of course, newly minted Babita, who is the president of the Region 3 Chamber. So the names and the status of the women that I mentioned just now would give you an idea as to why we decided to launch Tea and Tenacity, not just to celebrate the women who are in office, but also to celebrate the women who are looking at us and wants to get on board. I know it's past the month, the celebration of International Women's Day, but we have decided to take the entire month. So welcome to Tea and Tenacity. So I will now turn to our panelists. We have three capable women who have been blazing the trail in their position. But they have decided that the position doesn't matter this morning because we created a very intimate space and they want to talk to the women in business as women will talk. So first we have Honorable Susan Rodriguez, Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce of the Government of Guyana. Honorable Susan Rodriguez is a Member of Parliament and a Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce. In this role, she leads initiative focuses on economic diversification, strengthening the tourism sector, and supporting entrepreneurship and small business development across Guyana. I should mention to you that Minister Susan, before she took up the position, she also played a role of an entrepreneur, and which she was quite competent and capable in that space. We have also Ms. Lorena Salazar, who is the country representative, Inter-American Development Bank, which is IDB. Lorena is the country rep for IDB. With over 15 years at IDB, she leads the bank's strategic engagement with government, the private sector, and development partner while overseeing the coordination of IDB programs and investment in Guyana. And of course, last but not least, we have Dr. Natasha Gaskin-Peters, who is an economist and director at Fiscal Frontier, Inc. Dr. Gaskin-Peters is an economist with experience in both micro and macroeconomics and business development. As Director of Fiscal Frontier, Inc., she works with policymakers and the private sector to provide data-driven analysis that support better economic and business decisions. She previously served as director of the Center for Local Business Development and currently sits on several boards, including IPED and MEP Engineering Services. So, ladies, welcome to Tea and Tenacity.
Thank you.
This morning conversation is one that we assume will be profound. We have evidence that it will be profound. There are a few years back when it was a struggle to find capable women to come into the space and have the discussion. When my team and I decided to plan this event, we had to eliminate strong, capable women because it tells you that Guyanese women are showing up because they feel competent, they feel confident that they can get the work done. So kudos to Guyana and the work that our country, both government and private sector, is doing to support women in business, and we are just happy to be in this space. So we're going to start our conversation by allowing Minister Susan Rodriguez to lead out. What she will do this morning, she will talk on policy that is set and also being drafted to ensure that women takes up more role in the private sector and also in the country at large. So Minister Rodriguez, all over to you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Let me say Happy International Women's Month to all the women here and to my fellow panelists. It's a pleasure for me to join you in the month of March on for this discussion. I thought Kathy was going to moderate.
Yes, I will. But I
no,
want you to
okay.
set the tone.
That's all right. I am always extremely excited to talk about opportunities that exist for women entrepreneurship and to be in a room, in a space with women where we can talk about where we came from, the origin of our struggles, the progress that we've made, and to celebrate those milestones. It's one thing to talk about policy, and I would love to, to all day, speak about the work that we've been doing in government, and it's been a lot of work, but just in the spirit of celebrating women in this month of March. I always like to begin conversations around women with where we came from and how we got here. And it's important, especially for young women in our country who have access to opportunities like never before, that we have to remember that there are women who fought and died for the rights and privileges that we enjoy today, like the right to vote, like the right to own property, like the right to access financing. And Lorena will talk a lot about that today. So women have given up their lives, they've been on the front line, and they've died in this struggle. They've been martyred for us to enjoy the rights and privileges that we have today. Yet, we are more than 100 years away from achieving gender parity. So none of us in this room will live to see us achieve gender parity, and not even our children. But that is not to discourage you. That is to accept the reality of the world that we live in, and for us to renew our commitment to each other. And this brings me to you, Kathy, and I want to thank you for your leadership in the chamber. There's never been, well, you're the first woman president, and so we must congratulate you and celebrate you and all of the other women who are leading the different chambers of commerce and business in our country. Thank you for taking up that mantle. But more importantly, Kathy, thank you for always remembering us and for hosting events like this, because even though you are president of the chamber that makes up, of course, we have men and women membership, but for remembering that we have to pay it forward, and remembering that you also have an obligation to your women folk and to young people. And you were perhaps the only president that has focused so much on MSMEs because a lot of times in the chambers, you know, the executive tend to focus on those large businesses, big corporations, and Kathy has dedicated a lot of time and initiative to supporting MSMEs. And this is a space where a lot of women exist. And so that is very strategic of you and very generous of you to recognize that and to give your service, to spend your tenure in acknowledging that that space exists and creating opportunities in that space. In my own space, in leadership, in government, in the cabinet of our country, I am extremely honored and privileged to be a woman serving in that cabinet, coming from a minority community, and being a very proud representative of my government. President Ali has been a pioneering leader, introducing initiatives that previously were unheard of. One of those is that was made possible this year in the 2026 budget is the establishment of the Small and Medium Enterprise Development Bank. This is something that the private sector has been asking for a very long time, and mostly small and medium enterprises. Access to finance or access to affordable financing has always been an issue for the private sector, especially for startup enterprises. And we have done several things in the past, in the recent past, in the last 5 years, for example, to make access to financing more affordable and more accessible. I spent the last 5 years in the housing sector, which gave me a very unique opportunity to help women in droves. 46% of all the women who accessed land in the last 5 years now have access to collateral that they can use to access a loan. So 46% single women, this women only, were able to access land in the last 5 years. We passed the Security Interest in Movable Property Act, which operationalized the collateral registry. So for the first time in Guyana, women and anyone can use movable property to access a loan from a commercial institution. So your vehicles, equipment, contracts, produce, etc., from your farm. All of these can be used as security to access a loan, making it more accessible for women to access loans. And then the development bank now, we have the legislation in draft. So as soon as that is completed, it will be taken to the parliament so that we can pass that into law. And we will begin the work in ensuring that we can operationalize or utilize the $100 million fund that has been put aside for this initiative. The complete amount that will be invested is $200 million US, but in the first year we have set aside $100 million US to begin this process. So this will be, the bank will have two important components. Of course, to receive applications and process the loans of up to $3 million, collateral-free, interest-free. But I feel more importantly, the other component of the bank will be for capacity building. So we'll be working with all of those entrepreneurs who come to us, helping them, training them, helping them to put together their proposals so that they can not only access the $3 million that is available from the government, but that they can go on to access a further $7 million from the private institutions at preferential rates. So this is access to $10 million through an avenue that did not exist before. In the past, we have given support to micro, small, and medium enterprises through grants and loans through the Small Business Bureau. But this, Kathy, and that was maybe up to about $500,000. But this cafe is real change, is access to real financing. $10 million to of capital investment to make in a business can really transform a business and open avenues that were previously unavailable to women and to entrepreneurs. So that is something that I'm extremely excited about coming up this year. The Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce will be the ministry administering the development bank. And so I'm happy to be in a role again where I can support women and support entrepreneurship, which is something that of course I love. I love to see. I love to see women in business. I love to see women in rooms where the decisions are being made, and we all know how transformative that can be for a business, not only in making business decisions, but in the culture of a business. I think that is something that is often overlooked when you think about what are the reasons for the success of a business. It always goes back to the right culture, the right business culture. How do you treat your employees? The principles in which you operate your business. Your business is accountable, and there's integrity in the way you run your operations. We know how women do it without sounding bias, to anybody else. That's is who we are, and we like to see that culture within our business where we're kind to employees, and our employees are ultimately, they make or break a business. And being in the tourism sector, this is something that I've begun to talk about kindness, to talk about how we treat each other in public spaces, to talk about customer service. I launched the Tourism is Everybody's Business campaign to try to influence the culture and our attitudes towards visitors when they come to our country. And if everybody can just elevate the standard of their customer service in their individual enterprises, we'll start to see that public shift in how we treat each other, and then how we treat visitors when they are in our country. And there are a number of opportunities too, business opportunities that exist in the tourism space, because with the increased number of visitors that we have coming to Guyana, there are enormous opportunities for women to invest in the tourism sector. So in tour guiding, in tour operating, in transportation. There's a huge gap that exists in transportation to support the tourism sector. Purchasing a boat, a bus, cars, all of these are investments that women can make, and small investments that you can start up a business. Because when people come to Guyana, they have to move. They have to move on land. They have to move on our waterways, and there's a huge gap there with providing transportation for people to move in and around our country. We're working very hard on expanding our cruise sector. So I'm going next month to Miami to attend one of the largest cruise conferences. And there's so much interest in Guyana with our cruise ships coming here. As a matter of fact, next week one will be here, and we're going to go welcome them. It's hundreds of people that will be here. When they come off of that ship, they all have to go somewhere, and it's always a struggle for us. And I see THAG represented here. They know the struggle all too well, to put 300 people or so in different vehicles and different transportation that are going different places on different tours. That shortage exists. There's a gap there. And the tourism space is not, something that a lot of people have thought about before, unless you grew up in tourism, or somehow you were connected to the hospitality sector. So I would like to encourage more women to invest in the tourism and hospitality sector, and that's a real opportunity that exists.
I wanted to jump in there. Are you intentionally, or is there a strategy by your ministry to ensure that women get into consortium or partnership? Because a lot of women are in tourism, but they're doing it on a smaller scale. But what you just mentioned, if they don't come together, maybe they might not be able to capitalize, and then again the business opportunity might have to go to larger businesses. So is there any opportunity for women in tourism to come together in consortiums and partnerships?
Well, the opportunity exists, and hence I'm pointing out that this is an area that we look forward to more investment in that area. I'm also under the Ministry of Tourism, Ministry and Commerce. We're responsible for business. I met with the Women's Chamber, I think less than a week ago, and I told them about this opportunity that exists in the transportation sector for women to invest in. So, any opportunity that I have to encourage women to invest and to point them in a specific direction of where they can support the sector, as well as invest in a viable business. This is what we're doing, and we can help them. We can steer them in the right direction. Training, capacity building is all part of what we do also at the ministry and under the Guyana Tourism Authority. Marketing, capacity building. Anybody looking to start a business in tourism can look forward to that institutional support from us, the promotion of your business, as well as training from safety to first aid to customer service to hospitality, and then to specialized training that we will be doing after we complete the construction of the Tourism and Hospitality Institute that's currently under construction, that will be completed this year, where people will be able to go, young people or anybody can go and register at that institute and receive specialized training once that is completed. So that's another major project that we're looking forward to completing. The idea is to train people to international standards, to get our people ready for the transformation that has begun and that will continue even more rapidly in the next 5 years. That's why President Ali says, if you think you saw, transformation in the last 5 years, then, you ain't seen nothing yet. And the next 5 years will be even more transformational, and it will come even more rapidly. And we don't want anybody left behind. So whether it's women, whether it's minorities, whether it is our indigenous community, every day almost we're in the indigenous communities, Amerindian communities, conducting training. IDB has been a great supporter of us in this sector, ensuring that we build up that capacity so that everybody can participate.
Excellent. Thank you, Minister. And she did set the tone, because there are quite a few questions that I pulled there. So, Lauren, I want to go to you. The Developmental Bank, everybody's talking about it. Is there any plans by IDB to work with the government to ensure that the right people get towards that bank? Or is there some form of competition there between the government's bank and IDB?
There's never competition.
No competition, yeah.
It is interesting, but before that, I remember one of the first panels or events that we participated with Minister was at the Women Chamber of Commerce, and we were talking about same topic about women and the restrictions that women have to access to finance, or not even access to finance, to be in business, right? So I'm very happy to see her leading this portfolio at the government in commerce, in trade, in business. There is never competition. We are partners, and we are very happy to be partners, so not on the public sector side, but also in the private sector, right? Development bank is a fantastic idea, and of course we can support the government if that is
excellent.
Yes.
So when persons, especially women who are part of the micro, small, medium-sized enterprises, when they hear IDB, they say that's not for us. You know, I will go to GBTI and deal with GBTI Grow, Demerara Bank, Scotia Bank, the other financial institution, IPEN, Small Business Bureau. But IDB, for some reason, they see that as far-reaching. Simplify it for us. Tell us how women in small businesses can actually access products that IDB has.
Well, GBTI, Republic Bank, IPEP are our partners too. So we have operations with them. I will say that there are different areas that we can support through the ecosystem in the financial institutions in the country, not necessarily directly to us, but through the banks that are in Guyana. Right?
Anything specific that maybe a female is listening right now?
So, for example, with IPED, we just signed an operation that goes back to the micro and small enterprises that also include women. One of the things that we have at the IDB, right, we put kind of the equity and also the relevance of leaving no one behind. That's part of our, it's at the heart of the IDB. So that means that the people that is that has less access, right? We include in diversity and inclusion. And one of the areas is how we can collaborate with countries to have this parity, right? We are aware that we are not anybody of us will reach out to that stage or that age that we can see 100% parity, but that is the contribution that we are doing. So the women's are part of this equation. As a matter of fact, part of our country strategy with the government of Guyana is considering access or work in every single aspect that we do, how we can support the women. It's our cross-cutting theme.
Excellent, excellent.
Less risky too.
Yes, yes, of course. So Natasha, I was thinking about a question there, because a lot of women are asking me at the GCCI, and I'm not sure if Josephine would get this question. What type of business should I get into? I know I don't want to say to them that I might not be able to advise you because I don't have the data, but that is something that you have been gathering from a micro and macro level. So what are some of the business opportunities that you're seeing out there based on the data in this growing economy that women can actually tap into?
Thank you, Kathy. I know with the oil and gas industry here, often we tend to think oil and gas, and that is it. In fact, I was having a conversation with some folks out of Africa who reached out to me to get some advice in terms of where they should be headed. They just found oil. They're looking at Guyana. They saw that we did well in terms of local content and MSMEs. And so I would say, with the oil and gas comes other opportunities. As an economist, I generally tend to think very broadly. So a lot of us are focusing on oil and gas when really the opportunities are in the other sectors. If we think about construction, for example, and how fast that is growing, the construction sector has some of the greatest multipliers you can think about. And so, for women in construction, this can really have a significant impact on the economy, right? Because again, it's your job hiring, for example, the impact on communities. We know that when women, we invest in women, it goes back to the communities. Minister spoke about tourism, a sector that is growing significantly, opportunities there. In terms of the tourism sector, it links back to logistics. So, we see all of the construction and the interconnection. What does it mean in terms of opportunities, connection to Brazil? Right? So logistic opportunities in terms of transportation, for example, as Minister would have alluded to earlier, agro-processing is also growing quite fast. So oil and gas brings lots of opportunities through the revenues and the investment that we see that government is making in the economy. So I don't want women to only think about, you know, the fact that I may just be doing consultancy, or I'm in craft, or I'm in agro processing, and you're limited. You're really not limited to a specific sector. These sectors are going to grow significantly. I think the question becomes, how do you prepare and how do you take full advantage of this opportunity? And that goes back to, how are we documenting? So during the procurement process, whether it's oil and gas, construction, even the banking sector to get financing, everything comes back to documentation. And we find that a lot of folks, they have businesses, but they don't have a business plan. They don't have their cash flow. They're not planning. They're not thinking strategically. So I would say, while we have lots of opportunities in the wider sector, because of the oil and gas industry, we really have to think through documentation to be able to access finance. It's very crucial. To be able to apply for the procurement of any of the larger entities, you have to have documented system. In fact, this is how a business knows you, right? So it's not the case that they will know you as the person, but they know your business through the documented process that you can supply to them. So I would say to the women entrepreneurs out there that have their businesses, you may have lots of systems in place. Ensure that those systems are documented, because it helps you over the longer run also. Because if you're not there in the business can continue to function because you have the systems, you have those processes in place. And this applies to all sectors as we're seeing opportunities. And as Minister would have said earlier, you know, logistics, transportation, these are sectors that are growing. Are we preparing for it? So yes, you know, I may have a business, I'm in craft, for example. I love doing craft, but there may be other things that I see opportunity. Could I diversify my portfolio? And then it also comes back to partnership. Do I want to do it alone, or should I be partnering? We have many women in the rooms. I'm the type of person, I like to bring other women in the room, and I know these women very similar. Kathy, you know, she's bringing other women into the room. This can be a room that we can sit down, have conversation. The chamber can be a place where we can actually sit, strategize, help to form consortium, and go after larger projects as women-owned entities. So these are the things that I would also encourage you to take advantage of as you think about the cross-sectoral opportunities that are out there.
So I want to go to the audience. If we can get about 3 questions, and it would be nice if you can direct it to each of the panelists. So if maybe somebody asks a question to Minister, kind of skip it and allow somebody else to ask a question, if you had wanted to ask Minister a question. So as you ponder on your question, I just want to get Natasha to just wrap this up, then we'll go to the audience. Women are saying that I've been at it for a while. Samantha Reed, who's a contractor, we know Samantha have been there probably for the past 10 years, and she's saying, you know, I've done it, the small, medium size development. I want to get into larger project. How do we prepare Samantha to ensure that she gets into those larger supply chain projects?
A very good question. So I know Samantha well, and she's been doing a great job in her space. But I would ask the question, given where the economy is going and these larger scale projects, do you have the in-house capabilities to take it on? So have you documented all of your systems, for example? Are you going to hire highly skilled engineers, whether it's overseas, because there are lots of folks. Right now we know that there's a shortage in terms of the skilled personnel, finding engineers and so locally, but you can recruit from the UK, from India, from other places. There's interest there. Have you considered looking at skills elsewhere that can bring something to your company? Have you looked into partnering, whether with a local supplier who can supplement, who has done some larger scale projects, or internationally, so considering some international contractors who can bring transfer of skill and technology to you? So those are ways and means that you can grow. I find a lot of times we tend to want to keep our business to ourselves. And we have our secrets, our own business secrets. But I can tell you, I've been mentoring businesses through the center for 7+ years. In the past 2 years, you may have seen I have quite a few companies that I am now building out as MSMEs. But the ability for these entities to grow has come through partnering and collaborating with others, entering into the space, finding other women who share common goals, who want to grow together, entities that supplement what I'm doing. So I would say to look into partnering, look into collaborations, approach your bank also to see whether they would be able to fund, some of these larger projects. And of course, you can always come to see me afterwards, and we can have some further discussions.
Businesswoman right there. She just plugged that in. So we can have the first question.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies of the panel. I think you guys have done a phenomenal job in terms of just making us aware of the opportunities and the spaces that we can enter. Minister, I know we spoke the other day, but I do, it's not so much as a question, but just a reminder of our women, and I know you have this at the forefront of your mind, our women in remote areas and them being able to access the development bank. I'm just wondering if there is a plan, and if not, I'm sure that it's in stream for those women being able to access the resources. We know that they don't have the ability to travel easily, so just any information on that.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And it's always important for us to remember that, if we're being inclusive with our policies and our programs, that there really has to be a strategy by region, because Guyana is so unique geographically that there has to be ways in which opportunities are made available, and a different approach for the coastland versus the hinterland. So that is something that never escapes us in government. That's something we deal with every single day. And I wanted to point out, when Lorena was speaking, when people hear about the IDB, they're intimidated and they think, I can't qualify for a loan from IDB Invest. But Lorena has been very instrumental in changing the perception of the IDB. And similarly here in Guyana, we have, at least I think, I hope the banks don't disagree, but I think that we have been very instrumental from the level of government in helping to change the face of banking in Guyana, and the way that people approach financial institutions. And one of those ways that we were able to do that, or at least where I had a role in doing that, was in the housing sector. Going on our Dream Realize events and taking the banks with us, taking insurance companies with us in this informal setting where people were comfortable approaching a loan officer for the first time in their lives, inquiring about can I access a loan? What is the interest rates? Interest rate that would be available to me? What are the requirements? And the banks have been really responsive in making themselves available to the public, and in making sure that their requirements are easily achieved or more accessible for the public. And this goes as well and this helps everybody, including women in our remote communities. I just wanted to make a point quick also, Kathy. When I spoke at the awards, the GCCI awards dinner, I spoke about the private sector and government working hand in hand. That relationship has to be nurtured, because for the private sector to know where the opportunities for investment are, you have to see where government is investing. Where are we investing? If we're investing in infrastructure, where is this infrastructure going? Who are we linking? Where are we linking? We're linking Brazil. You know that we're building the road to Lefem and then to Brazil. You know that President Ali has spoken about the bridge across the Quarantine River that will open up opportunities in Suriname. You see us developing many industries within the different regions. So you have to understand the vision of government. The private sector cannot operate in isolation from the government, because you have to know where your country is going and what the opportunities are. You hear us speaking about the orange economy. And Natasha made a great point that we might be noticed on the global scene because of our oil and gas sector. But the opportunities that will be created because of the oil and gas sector, or because of the interest in our country now, is where many of us need to be looking, because those are the areas that the investment opportunities exist in our creative sector. So everybody doesn't have to go after one thing, or everybody can't be a contractor. But there are all of these other opportunities that exist. And you will see in the coming months a lot of work being done to advance the formal structure of our orange economy. And of course, you know, film and arts and dance and music and culture and tourism, and all of those make up aspects of our orange economy. And I think women will have a huge role, especially our indigenous women will have a huge role to play in how we formalize that framework, and how Guyana can really live up to our international reputation of being culturally and historically rich. And no place that we can see that better than once we establish our orange economy and our creative sector. So I just wanted to speak about the orange economy a little bit, because I'm not sure if you're going to come back to me, and I didn't want to lose the opportunity to tell the women about it, to tell the women about that.
Question for Lorena?
Minister, I'm so happy that you mentioned that beautiful color, orange, because that's exactly what I was going to jump in on. And I was on a panel last week discussing the orange economy. And in doing that preparation, I realized two vital, remember from our primary school days, two vital colors come together to make orange as a primary color. It's red and yellow. And it speaks to the creativity of it, and it speaks to its vibrance, its energy, and what it really epitomizes. A question that came out of that discussion was, why is there not more allocation towards this new thing named the orange economy? It's not new, relatively, yes, to the blue and green, but my response to that is that Minister Ashni Singh goes by numbers, and I know you too love numbers. So here's the challenge that we have as we try to truly put that new frontier into scope. How do we actively, as we pursue it, attempt to measure the contribution in terms of GDP contribution of the orange economy, so that in October, if we can do it early enough for that timeline, or next year, we can truly have a reflection of the value of that. And I'm so happy because within tourism, wearing that hat as well, we've been truly trying to get that measurement, but now we have more cousins and aunties and uncles now to go with us that can now pull that together, and we now can measure the contribution of the orange economy in order to have the true allocation towards that space. And I say that because during that discourse as well, we're able to see the various contributors within that space. And indeed, women are going to be part of it. And wherever women are, as we heard from the presentation of our panelists today, you are going to see mighty growth. So if I can, without attempting to throw you under the bus somewhere, but to more in partnership, seek some commitment that we can go after valuing and measuring the contribution of that extensive sector.
Yeah, sure. Through the chair. So, you raised a very important point. And the so let me just backpedal a little bit. Last year, when I picked up the People's Progressive Party Civic Manifesto going into the 2025 elections, I was shocked in a really good way of how advanced the document is in terms of the industries that we intend to enhance over the next 5 years. That's a highly political statement, but it's a very true statement. And I was very happy to get behind the second term for President Ali being led by the plans included in that manifesto. And there are pages, because once I got into the Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, I went through that document to extract all of the pages that spoke about tourism and about hospitality and culture and so on. And I was surprised by how many pages my staff brought back to me that we extracted from the document that spoke extensively about the orange economy and about investments there. And right away in our first budget, and I don't know if you missed this, but in our first budget, we have already allocated over $3 billion specifically to the orange economy. So that allocation in the budget is for us to build that framework to capture precisely the data you're asking for. Because if it is not structured and is not measurable, we wouldn't be able to say these are the contributions that each of these sectors under the orange economy are making to our national economy. And when I got to tourism, that's one of the things I wanted to see. I wanted to see the numbers. And they said, we don't have all of these numbers that you want. We're tracking things like how many people are coming to our country. We have some data on, or an average of how much money, each visitor spends. And then if you multiply that, you'll get an idea of tourism's contribution towards our economy, the national economy. But it's an outdated figure and it's an average. So if somebody goes on Rob Street, for example, and buys a craft item from the craft shops there, we can't track that. There's no way for us to track that. We don't know how much people are spending on transportation every time they take a taxi. And so all of those things we need to capture. How much money people are spending in restaurants. We know how much they're spending for accommodation, because that data is available from our hotels and our lodges. And the Guyana Tourism Authority does a fantastic job at keeping track of those expenses and those contributions towards the economy. But I can tell you that the orange economy is already contributing in a massive way towards our economy. But we need to know for sure, or as close as possible, the scale of which our creative sector is contributing to the economy. And I think when women and entrepreneurs have that number and they can really measure it, it will become more attractive for investment. And so that's the aim. And so I encourage people to really look at this with a lot of curiosity. And I'm really excited for what the next 5 years will bring. And I'm really proud that my president and my government is leading this effort. People may look at it and think, let's build the things we can see. Let's build the roads, the schools, the hospitals. It's easy to point to that and say, we did that. And we've been doing a great job at that. But we also know that we have a duty and an obligation to create a space for our artists and a space for our culture to really take up a place in our society where we can grow that sense of patriotism in our country, where we can pay homage to our history, to our food, to our culture, especially our our indigenous culture, and that there's great value in it. That's what people are coming here for. They're coming here to eat our food, to experience our hospitality, to witness our culture, and this is something that we can monetize. And there's great value in ensuring that you give or provide great customer service. I said somewhere one time when I went to an interior lodge, and the owner for the lodge pulled up the article and he said, "I live by this now. Good service is good business." And he said, "You said this."
Wow.
And he, he has it on his phone. And so, yeah, we're happy to be working with women and with entrepreneurs and in putting together a framework that can make the orange economy really vibrant and more attractive to our business community.
Excellent, excellent. Any question for Lorena or Natasha?
Thank you. So documentation has come up several times in the conversation from every presenter. For women who currently run informal entities, and many of them do, or even formal entities that are classified as micro or small, what are three things, or three of the first things that they should put in place to formalize themselves or position themselves for bigger opportunities? And I know you spoke specifically to construction, but on a wider scale, we all need to register or do something. What are those three core things that you would recommend that women need to get done now to prepare for bigger opportunities?
That's for Natasha?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, Martina. So as you said, a lot of women are in the informal sector. This means that their business is not registered, first of all. So that is one of the first thing I would recommend. You don't necessarily have to go towards incorporation right away. So it can be a step-by-step process. So formalization can start with a simple sole trader registration at the deeds registry. It costs just about $5,000. It's not expensive. So start by getting registered, formalizing. Of course, after you're registered, one of the key things that you need to have, as I say, even as an individual, if you don't have a plan for your life, then where are you going? So as a business, you must have a plan. It's the first thing. Minister alluded to this earlier also. The development bank, what are they going to ask you about in your proposal? It's a plan. So what is the plan for your business? Where do you see it in 5 years? How do you see your income coming in, your expenditure? So you need to have a plan for the business. You might hear the term strategic plan. You don't have to think through the very complicated terminologies, but just having a plan for your business, very, very crucial in terms of the initial documentation. And with that, of course, come some simple things. What is your vision statement? What is your mission statement? A lot of times we find that, these SMEs, women-owned entities, a lot of the things are in their head. When you go to the bank for financing, they don't want to know what's in your head or this business has been doing well. They want to know what is documented. So ensure that you have that plan. I would say very, very, very crucial. So getting registered, having a business plan, and then starting to document systems. So something as simple as you're hiring an employee. What does that process entail? How do you hire? So document it. As you think through things, if you want to do marketing for your business, engage with stakeholders, it shouldn't be in your head. Write it down, right? So what I would encourage folks to do is just to write down the things that you're thinking. Write it down and then that is part of your formalization process. So that when you go to the financial institution, you go to a client that you're engaging, you have something to present to them. And lastly, I would say have something as simple as a company profile, right? So that can entail a lot of information in it. Go into PowerPoint, have a deck of your business and what it is, even if it's 5 slides that you have, have a company profile, something you can share with
Excellent.
others.
So I want to
Move
go
on
into
to
our
company.
last round of questions. And Lorena, I have two for you because the audience, I don't know, maybe they're still thinking IDP, it's too, I might not be able to qualify. So just give us, Lorena, that little secret. What is that one project that a female can present to you and get some access to financing? You're in the house here. We're going to keep the secret here.
Gotta have a bank
There's a
account.
question there?
Yeah.
Yes, I was just, I mean, one, picking up on the comment that Natasha says as somebody that actually, in terms of does strategic planning and does a lot of capacity building with persons, people are always afraid to write. But I wanted to highlight, and especially because Lorraine is here, an important component of financing is always grant financing, which I think a lot of us are not tapping into. The Sustainable Development Initiatives list by rote, women-led, women-owned youth initiatives, working in wellness, working in arts and technology. So I just wanted, if perhaps, Lorraine, if you have any feedback to give as to how they can tap avenues for grant financing, and the scale at which you guys start for the purposes of SMEs.
Excellent question.
I would like to start by what Natasha was raising, right? The compliance, the bankability that we call, right? Our colleagues from the local banks, right? Same as the development bank here, or even your friend that has as an investor, right? They're not going to give you money just because you are a good person, right? They need to see how the investment is going to be a profit and sustainability of that project. When we talk about the bankability, we are talking about, it's easy usually say what we want to do. The complex part goes back when we're asking question, how you are going to do this and why you are going to do this, right? What is your objective to scale up? And I think that most of you are entrepreneurs right now, but what is missing to scale up? And it's not just for the women, I would say, it's a matter of the maturity and how even Guyana private sector has evolving, right? The first project, it took us a few years to join and accompany the companies, hand-holding the companies to understand better how we work, our requirements, also getting familiarized with what different financial structure is better for your project. Not everything is about a loan, right? Sometimes you need equity, sometimes you need just a credit line for a short term, or others is capex, opex. So those are the questions that you should be asking today. For example, in technology, now we have the fintech, the movable assets that the minister was talking about. So how you are using your sewing machine as a collateral if you want to buy a new one, right? In a short term, of you want a new operator. One basic question that sometimes I find interesting is, we are talking about the scarcity of labor force, right? But goes back to the question to the companies. What is the skills that you need? How many people do you need? Is really that you need 2 people, or you want, for example, to enhance or increase a machinery that you need for your production line, right? So those are the kind of questions that usually we stop, right? The compliance, the market. What is your market? And your client, knowing your client is basic, right? Or if you want to expand to other region, what the other region is producing, are in the same space? What is your difference, your value added to that market that they will choose you over? Or one of the things that we're talking about, the consortiums, right? So we are working with a Ministry of Human Services, Minister Persod, and last weekend we saw 400 women exhibiting their products. Interesting enough, right? First, as she was mentioning, first time was kind of just over 30 women or so, and there was individuals. Today they realize that the market is asking for volume, right? And volume and consistency in the product that you are delivering, right? So that's how this consortium is starting. So it's evolving. For example, we are working with the Economic Development Fund, right? And there is an organization, an NGO that has been working for several years in Guyana. So through them is kind of, they are working in enhancing the packaging of a product, comply with the NQI requirements, right? So GMBS requirements, if it is a food or if it is another. So I will say that there are several opportunities for the women. And again, access to finance, if you have a good business case that you can present, it is usually easier for us to review. Even again, even if you have a friend that wants to, as an investor, trust is the key word here. You need to build trust.
Wow, excellent.
Can I support, if I just,
Sure.
to support what Lorraine is saying, in creating value. You know, some women often think, or entrepreneurs often think about, you know, I can grow if I get more money, or I can grow if I get that loan. But there are other ways to create value, and you mentioned some of them. But other avenues that are available, or other things that can help you, is getting licensed. So depending on what sector you're in, you know, getting your business licensed, getting a Made in Guyana certification from the GNBS, and that's because you mentioned quality. And there are so many standards that exist, hundreds of standards that exist, that are available through the GNBS, Guyana National Bureau of Standards, which also falls under my ministry, that you can go there and you get that certification. They take you through the process. They do the hand-holding for you so that you can achieve that certification. That certification adds value to your business. It adds equity to your business. It's something that when you go to the banking institution, that forms part of your company profile. So that value is created there. You have to see that as creating value. But mostly when people hear compliance, certification, and these things, they think government red tape. But these are things that exist for you to improve and enhance your business. And ultimately, it will improve your own internal structure and your own internal procedures. And we help with that. It's readily available and free of cost for people to access that. And one other thing is technology. And a lot of us, our businesses, lack technology. And there are many affordable technology that is available out there for you to include and incorporate in your business to add that value. I was at the We Lift Expo recently, and I saw so many new businesses, women-owned businesses. One woman who has recently launched this electronic device where you can now pay with your card, regardless of which bank you're banking with.
FlowPay.
And FlowPay, yes. And it goes to one central bank account, and then the bank distributes the payment to other banks. You know, a woman-owned business, this is a technology that she has leveraged. She's brought the equipment.
First fintech female in the country.
First. So, and you know, I was so surprised. I was happy that I went there. But business is about solving problems. And sometimes you're looking for somebody to give you an answer that you're looking for. But if that problem was solved already, then there wouldn't be that business opportunity that exists there. So sometimes the answer is not external, it's internal, and you have to figure out for yourself, what is the problem that I'm looking to solve, and how can I solve it, or how can I enhance my business in a way that gives me that competitive edge that Lorraine is talking about. What makes me different? What am I offering that people need and they don't know that they need yet? And so business, and this is why I love business, because you can really, your the opportunity that is available for you to be creative and to solve issues, to solve problems, make life easier for people, and then creating value out of that.
Excellent. And as we're wrapping up, Natasha, from director at Center for Local Business Development to now entrepreneur, business owner, partner with your husband, and I think we need to talk a little bit about that also. Women, it's okay to partner with your spouses. It's okay to do that. What was the transition like? Because there are some women who are in employment doing an excellent job, but they really think they can make that jump over to employment, to business owner, or right. So what was the transition like for you?
Thank you for that question, Kathy. Venturing into business is always a risk. I think from my perspective, because I've been advising businesses for over 7 years, what I found is that international folks would come to my office and I'm telling them their strategic plan, how they should build out in Guyana. And after a while, I realized that maybe this is something that I should be doing, like I should be venturing out on my own. And so I decided to take the risk. I do have a construction company with my husband. It has been a challenge because, of course, with a job, there is an income every month. In business, we know that, there are times when you get a client, then another time it's slow. So how do you sort of, smooth that process in terms of cash flow? Cash flow is very, very important in any business. So I would say to anyone out there, the risk is worth it, because what I saw is that the economy was growing and it's growing at a very fast pace. And again, in business, you have to also bring intelligence. Minister spoke about quality. So one of the things we do in our construction company, in fact, we're the only Guyanese company that integrates electrical, plumbing, HVAC system, and fire. So outside of civil works, in any building is your MEP systems. We design it. So we started as a consultancy company designing MEP systems. And then, we realized there was a gap in installation. So persons were saying, well, you're designing this system. Can you build it for us? So we started hiring electricians and plumbers, built out our construction portfolio. And now they're saying, we don't want you to leave because your service is so good that we don't want anyone touching this building. Can you do maintenance for us? And so now we are one of the first Guyanese companies to bring fully integrated maintenance service. There's a lot of thinking behind it, use of technology. So the other day, for example, we were on a site and a local contractor looked at us because we were using new technology in the plumbing system. So rather than you go on site and you're digging to see where the issue is, we have looked at equipment that we can use. And so they're like, is this a scientific experiment? And this is a large contractor. And we said, no. Again, you have to bring intelligence. You have to bring the competitive edge. And so this is what we have been doing. And I think from my work in the oil and gas industry, it's very high standard. And we've been setting that pace. And I think as local Guyanese companies, I always say we're local with international talent. And so we have to see ourselves as internationally talented. Both Lorena and Minister alluded, the quality systems, all of your certification, get these things in place. So you bring a different level of service to your client. And again, in business, it's bringing solution to the problem. We love when you have problems because we have the solutions. And that is what entrepreneurship is about.
Who's that woman that you admire?
There are lots of women that
Give me that one.
that I admire, but I would say the one that really comes to mind would be Oprah Winfrey. Again, she's a woman of color that has really made a remarkable impact in the world. And in a lot of spaces that I've sat, I've been sort of the only woman in the room in oil and gas and the only woman of color in the room. And so I would say that she has been an inspiration, and it just goes to show that, you know, women are capable of anything. And I always say if we team up and we join together. So Kathy, I must say thank you for, you know, bringing this forum to the forefront. And I hope that we can have many more of these, because again, what we see in our schooling system is that, you know, women are often ahead in school, but when we get into the working environment, we are behind. So what is causing that gap? And how can we who are in the room now begin to make that change as the private sector, working together with government to really foster that change? And now is the time.
Excellent. Lorena, who's that woman that you admire?
Ooh. I have many. I have many. Women in business. Let's put that way. My mom and my sister, right? My mom was a farmer. When the farming was kind of more male, she was harvesting soy and corn, and you know, while my father was in the construction, right? And my sister, she started as also in agriculture, but in a different part, that she saw an opportunity. Something that is not going to close ever, even during the pandemic, is food.
Yeah.
And the traceability of the food. So she created this company that she has today. It's not just her, but she provides international advice, and several of the certification companies hire her to go to different countries and certify the production line of the different products. So opportunity in business and expansion.
Excellent. Minister, before you answer that question, I want you to talk a little bit, just brag a little bit for us there about Backyard Cafe. What happened there? Yeah, we can't leave this room without talking about what happened there at Backyard Cafe. We're excited about that.
Yeah, so Backyard Cafe, we made the announcements yesterday that they are listed as one of the greatest places to visit in 2026 by the Times Magazine. And, you know, that, give the team over at Backyard Cafe a shout out, Delvin Adams. And what did he do? A simple thing. He followed his passion. His passion is cooking and creating unforgettable experiences for people. He welcomes you into his home and into his backyard and into his kitchen, where I've been. And, you know, he's allowed me to dabble a little bit and make some garlic pork, which I did at Christmas time.
Excellent.
And just to be in a space where you can feel like you're at home, but somebody's catering to you at the same time. And he created that experiential opportunity and space or experience for his visitors. And he has gained now global recognition for it, just like Guyana. Guyana has been gaining global recognition. We have been listed as a country by Times as 26 places, one of the 26 places to go in 2026. Bloomberg has listed us among the countries to visit in 2026. So we've been gaining that global recognition too, and this is one of the reasons people are coming here so often and so much. And every month we are growing on the previous month, our visitor arrivals, and even over the previous year. So we're going to see a lot more people in our country, a lot more opportunities that will be created, and where you can add value and create a business opportunity.
A lot more Backyard Cafe.
Yeah.
Who's that woman that you admire, Minister?
It's a lot. You know, I admire women in politics from around the globe, you know, from going as far back. Like I was a young teenager when I think it was my aunt who gave me a book thick like this. It was a biography of Margaret Thatcher. So I was like a serious youth, you know, and she's been a controversial figure, first woman prime minister of the United Kingdom. I admire people, other women in politics like Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama, uh, all of these, Oprah. Like, I grew up watching my mother watch Oprah. And so the Oprah was inescapable, but we learn different things from women. There's no one perfect person, but people go through things in life, struggles in life, and the way that they react to it gives us an opportunity to learn something from them. You either learn what to do or what not to do, because they could handle it in a good way or in a bad way. But all of these, women, and here in Guyana too, I listened to the Starting Point interview with Gail Teixeira, and her talking about what it was like for her being the Minister of Health at the time when they passed the legislation for medical termination here in Guyana, and how bloody the kind of protest was, and she had threats on her life, and those are periods that define our history, and many of us don't even know about it, and so it was good to hear her talk about it. So women do things that you admire, and they set examples and for us to emulate. And so I could go on to list dozens, of women in Guyana and globally that have really shaped my life, and as women, we have the opportunity also to be that example to other people, because other people, other women, young women are watching us too. So we have that responsibility to ensure that we are conducting ourselves and blazing a trail for other women to look at us and take an example also.
Excellent. Thank you to my panelists for an engaging session. Tea and Tenacity right here in the GCCI Micro Women Learning and Training Center. I think the discussion here was fruitful, mouth-watering, and more needs to come. So look out for Tea and Tenacity as we go through the year. We want to present a podcast to you every month where we're going to have the engagement surrounding women. I know somebody might be saying that I've been hearing a lot of things about women business, women-owned business, women-led businesses, but we still have to have the conversation. You know why? Because women are still a minority in business. If you look at all the boards that are set up, most of the boards have a third of women only, and we should be satisfied with that, we are told. We want to make it equal, not 50-50, as the world knows 50-50, but we want to have this strong representation. So thank you all for joining us, and let us continue to support and build out our women-owned business, women-led businesses in Guyana. Thank you.